Welcome to today's episode. I'm delighted to be speaking with Nobantu Mpotulo, a guest from South Africa. We were joking at the beginning of the call about the difference in weather. I'm looking outside here in London, and it's kind of windy and a little bit rainy. And Mpotulo was saying it's a bit chilly where she is, and then she said it was 20, and I was like, "That's not chilly." But it's great to have that discussion, that very British discussion about the weather before we get going. It's great to have you here with us today. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you much, Rob. I'm looking forward to the exploration and see where it gets us.
Yeah. I love the idea that as we were talking that we were just going to be sort of lean into emergence and see where we go. Although I'm fascinated about coaching in South Africa and sort of your journey as a coach in that space. Perhaps you could share with us a little bit about how you got into coaching in the first place.
Thank you for that. It's amazing when something is your calling and your purpose. I knew when I was 16 years of age, when I was finishing my high school, that I wanted to work with people. And I'm the youngest at home, the last born and the only girl. And all my brothers are in the maths and science field. So for some reason, they thought that I would follow the maths and science field. And without knowing that, I had my mind set on other things. And I remember as I was about to write my math paper, my eldest brother took leave from work to come and make sure that I had to get an A in maths. And I thought, no. I managed to get myself a D because I knew I wanted to go to humanities. And I started off with a psychology degree and did my master's at Durham University in guidance and counseling. And then I worked with university students as a university student counselor. And then in 2000, we met up with David Clutterbuck here in South Africa.
Oh, David.
And formed a partnership in mentorship, installing in-house mentorship schemes in organizations. And then we were 3 partners, but because I got so excited about mentorship, I decided on my company, because our model was that we had partnership in in-house mentorship schemes. And then I started to get interested in executive coaching. So I started to train using Gestalt and also using some of David Clutterbuck's approaches to coaching. And it really started from then.
Wow, that's
never to look back.
Yes. And I love that sort of winding journey, but also that that desire to grow and to learn and sort of take on board what was sort of emerging for you in the space at that time.
Exactly. That's what happened. Yeah.
And then I guess there's a question here about what's the sort of appetite for coaching in South Africa? So I know in different places, coaching sort of has a different age or legacy. And in some places, coaching's been around as coaching, I suppose it's been around as for 20 years or for 30 years. And in some places, a lot less. Although I would imagine that the work you're doing as a coach might feel very similar to other work that wasn't called coaching.
Well, I would say formally and in the Western kind of way, it's about 20 years. But if I'm thinking when I was growing up, this was a role that was played by older siblings. This was a role that was played by grandmothers. So informally, there has been mentorship and coaching programs, but formally in South Africa is 20 years or so. And I think in the African continent, South Africa is leading in terms of coaching. Yeah.
And when you think about that sort of that informal way of working, how does that inform the formal way of coaching that when you think about it now?
It's very much a build up on the formal, because if I'm thinking as a young girl, there would be like bigger sisters with their friends who would take you through how to sort of transition into womanhood from girlhood, and how to be, and also the mothers would be part of that. And in deep rural areas, we would have what we call intonjane, where they would take a group of girls into initiation school, and they are taught about how to become women, what is important in womanhood.
And I guess part of the work that you do as a coach is working with your clients to work out what's important for them in their womanhood or manhood or personhood, and then help them to explore that and become that.
Exactly. Because if I'm thinking about Ubuntu, it's exactly like that, where we look at how do we co-create the interconnectedness, how do we journey together. There's a proverb in Africa that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So it's been like that. I mean, from the time I was a little girl, I knew that there's no way that to be successful, you can be on your own. You have to be journeying with others. And if I'm even thinking of Mr. Nelson Mandela, when he talks about Ubuntu, he talks about even for us to become human, it is through the humanity of others. So with this Ubuntu approach, it's like there is a way of thinking about how can others be able and good. And then I find that I play that role in enabling others rather than to be self-serving. So it's something that we grew up with. And if I'm looking at coaching and how as coaches we help our clients to co-create their goals, their outcomes, and we walk alongside them in terms of helping them to achieve those. So if I'm looking at Ubuntu, it's a way of, it's like we are having our arms intertwined. We're walking together alongside. And as I'm saying this, I'm having a picture of Nelson Mandela when they walked away from prison. They were like having a chain with their arm. So it's exactly that. And when I'm coaching, it's so easy for me to have those visuals, those imaginations, because as also African people, we are people that are very, we want to see things, we want to feel things, we feel things in our body. So that embodiment is what becomes important. And I find that because I grew with this, I then take it to my clients, and that presence of modeling, of representing that becomes in the field with the client, and the clients pick that up.
Yeah, I love that idea of walking alongside. I remember Bronwyn Nash, one of our trainers here at Animas, talking about that when she talks about coaching, this idea that we're walking perhaps down a beach together, and as we walk together, you can tell me where you want to go, but I can also
Exactly.
point out what I see on this journey.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. And I'm picturing myself in the beach right now. Yeah, it should be as relaxed as that. And hence, I find when I'm coaching, I don't even take notes because I'm having a conversation with this friend. And when I have conversations with my friends, I do not take notes. So why should I just not be present fully with this person and have no other things and just focus on this person?
But it's really interesting. I know a lot of new coaches get really caught up in this idea of capturing everything that's being said. And I also remember when I first started coaching, I would take copious notes because you were worried that you were going to forget something. And then over time, you start to relax into being able just to be present and know, and I guess trust that you will remember that the important stuff will stay with you. Was that a journey for you as well to not take notes?
Well, I think for me, I am very much somatic in my nature. I tend to take things with my body and I learn by osmosis. So I find actually taking notes right from the beginning did interfere with me being fully present
Yeah.
with the person. And then from that, what has helped me is really being in tune, the attunement to who I'm with. And as I am coaching, even if it's physical or virtual, I tune into the nonverbal cues
Oh, yes.
because the body is the truth teller. So just the tuning in and then watching each and every minute change you notice. I mean, the blinking of the eye, the breathing, even the heartbeat. You hear the heartbeat, you hear the ruggedness of the breathing, the tone of what. So those are the things that I really get attracted to. And then I become curious about those. And whenever I share just those in time observations, you find that I notice that you have been blinking a number of times in this session. And then someone will say, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I've been thinking, without even trying to interpret that, but just the minute noticing the 120% attunement to the other. They get themselves. It's amazing how much, even just reflecting those, then the coachee, you would hear them saying, when you were saying this, and yet through the just-in-time observation, they then say what that means for them and are able to even see what they are saying.
I love the idea of being able to hear your coachee's heartbeat in a session, that you're so tuned into them that you can feel every sensation that's happening in the space. Is there a practice or a something that enables you to be so tuned in?
In growing up, I grew up really loving being in my body, movement, dancing. I mean, when I start my dancing, I can dance myself into a trance. And when that happens, I find that something that is beyond me takes over. I get in touch with the body intelligence completely and the inner knowing. And so I find that I don't rely so much on my intellectual capacity or cognitive kind of understanding. And one other thing that helps me, I practice mindfulness, I practice meditation, before each coaching session, I have to either do my walking meditation or do some breathing practice or just sit and get attuned to what's happening within me. And with that, then I find it really brings me down to my body. And I think also the knowing that my body is the truth teller and actually more intelligent than my intellectual capabilities.
I love that phrase, the body is the truth teller, because it just allows us to get out of our heads and stop interpreting or trying to diagnose with the mind. Just go, what are the sensations that I'm feeling or that I am noticing, and just to sit and work with those.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And also, as that is happening, because you're so much in your body, the client, I mean, I was laughing yesterday. I had this client that said to me, I feel like dancing. I said, why don't you dance? She stood up, she hummed a song, she danced, and some magical transformation happened. Just and also knowing that I won't be somehow out of place if I do and listen to this body and do what this body wants in the moment. And this is what Silsby calls dancing in the moment, allowing emergence to happen through just attunement.
And I love that invitation there that somebody says, I feel like, okay, then why not? Let's do that. Let's go with how you feel in this moment and see where it takes us. Because by doing that without any sort of judgment or any condition, it allows the client to really feel heard and respected, I guess, by you in that space.
Exactly. And Rob, if we think about this coaching and this connection, in my language, when we meet someone, instead of saying good morning, good evening, or good whatever, we say sawubona. I see you. I see your ancestors. I see everyone that's contributed to who you are. I see your strengths, your struggles, your aspirations. And you really see the person. Because when we meet someone, even when we ask how you are, I'm going to be asking you about your dogs, about your cattle, a cow that gave birth to a calf. And so it's really seeing the person in totality. And the listening deeply as well follows, because I really see you.
And I love that idea of, really seeing somebody and being really inquisitive about who they are, but not just them as an individual, but almost them as part of a system.
Of course.
And that, what's happening in their system, because that's going to have an impact on them and how they show up with you.
Exactly. And when I come, I have this three-pronged approach of being present and mindful to what is happening at a specific moment. I start off with myself, where through breathing, even my breathing, I tune to that. How is that? And it feels like I'm cutting off the air supply. What emotions am I bringing? And also, what's the bias, conscious or unconscious, that I'm coming with? And also, what's evoked in me as in this moment as I am with this client? And then the second part is about the awareness and mindfulness and presence to what is happening within the client being curious about what I was saying, the kind of breathing, tone of voice, their heartbeat, and also how you allow for even the silence, where they can even be allowed to be with the sounds of the stillness, and then just sharing those just-in-time observations. And then what becomes important as well, because we never walk alone in Africa, now being mindful to their environment. How are their stakeholders going to benefit from this coaching? And who has got interest in this? The teams, how is the organization going to benefit? And how would they take this back to their environment? How is their environment going to be changed as a result? So it's this kind of holistic approach that doesn't look at just your client and individually who they are.
Yeah, as you were saying that the idea of exploring what's evoked in me as well as what's evoked in their client, because sometimes we feel that we need to get out of the way, and of course we do, because it's not about us, but noticing what's being triggered or evoked or brought forward in us can sometimes help us to understand or explore what's happening for the coachee as well, because we're sensing or feeling what's happening for them. And I love this thing of what's happening in their environment and how are they going to bring this work back to that environment. So it's not separate. It's not you do the work and it's just you, but it's how is your environment going to benefit from that, whether that's your family or your friends or your workplace, but how is that going to be impacted by the coaching?
Exactly.
And as you were talking there, you said about the sounds of stillness. And I sort of, it made me sort of think about what you were saying about heartbeats and hearing their heartbeats. And I just wonder if you want to talk a little bit about how you use that silence and that stillness to create emergence with your clients.
What I find happens with me when I'm really present and in tune and attuned to my client, for some reason, as we get into these moments of silence, just allowing those, and it's amazing how much when that happens, you get in touch with the vibrations and the frequency. The listening becomes totally different. It's like when that happens, what I find when I'm in that state of listening, I would know before a client says something what they will say. And it's like this deja vu of some sort. It's like, huh? Have we been here before? So in a way, it makes you connect in a deeper level to the client. And here's the thing, Rob, I believe we are all connected. And there's this part in all of us that connects us to others and others and others, our umbilical cord. So when I'm in that attunement, it feels like because this client was connected to their mother through their umbilical cord, I was connected to my mother and the ancestors and my lineage. There's that deep connection to the client, and not just the client in front of you, but to whoever came before them and who contributed to their DNA. And as you tune into that, I think somehow you allow for the client to reveal whatever to themselves.
As you say that, it sounds like there's a there's a lot more than coaching happening in the space. There's other aspects of your culture that's showing up in that space and enriching that space.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I've found people, I would be connecting with them, and as we really are in this, they will be telling you, I'm connecting now with my Irish ancestors. I can feel that it's not just me who's doing the work, but it feels like this is now somehow intergenerational. For me, that's when you really take out your biases. That's when you have positive regard, unconditional love for the client. And if I'm thinking of Carl Rogers, and if you look at coaching, how connected it is to therapy and psychotherapy, it's all about that. And for me, my mantra in coaching is, if we can see more, you hear more, listen deeply to your clients, love your clients. And this is one feedback I've gotten from most of my clients. I've never felt so much love. I might not like them, but I love them dearly. So love more, illuminate more. How do you, through being present and just sharing these just-in-time observations of what you're observing, how that illuminates and ignites the fire within them. And you be more for your clients to become. Just, coaching is about creating that trusting relationship. For instance, if they see a Rob who's present, a Rob who is really not rushing anywhere, it's like, wow, I'm in good hands here. So in you being more for them, they become more, and you find that they take the action and commit to the action, and you do less. And at the end of the coaching session, you don't have a headache because you are not doing the work of your clients.
It really speaks to that, trusting the process, taking the time, sitting back, noticing, observing, reflecting, as opposed to having lots of processes that you're trying to make happen. You're just kind of sitting there and being grounded so that the person that's with you can feel that groundedness.
Exactly.
When you said there that you love them, you might not like them, but you love them. And often we sort of talk about, do we like our clients and what happens if we don't like our clients? But there's something really interesting there about, well, it doesn't matter whether I like them or not. Can I love them from a coaching perspective? Can I deeply love them and deeply be with them?
Exactly. And I've found that happening. If I'm thinking about the history of this country, I'm finding a lot of African men who were our oppressors during apartheid, and I'm finding them wanting to be coached by me. And then I come into that relationship, I check out my biases, I check out the impact of the history I've been through. And then I say, in coaching, I vowed to love everybody. And everything else, because I'm aware of that, I'm not saying that has not affected me. I come with that awareness, but the intention for this moment is to really see who I'm with, be with them fully, love them. And it's amazing, Rob, how all the history, the stories, when we really come from that open, compassionate heart, they don't matter as much. And you find this transformation with the person in front of you. You find the person totally having a different outlook to life. And I think that's our role as coaches, to really focus on this person. Or if we know we cannot be able to be fully present, objective, compassionately loving them, for goodness sake, don't take that client on.
And you know, there's such a history there in South Africa that I imagine when your clients see you, a black woman, loving them in that moment, regardless of that history, that must create a different level of trust and openness in there, because they are, at times, they must be coming with the knowledge of that history when you first meet.
Exactly.
And the recognition of those troubled times, but yet to feel so loved by you must have such a healing effect in that space as well.
And just to share an example, I was coaching in this militaristic environment, and one of my clients was this Afrikaner man who did not choose to be coached, but the company said, you are going to be coached by this black woman. And I remember when we started off, oh my God, he was not chuffed at all. What can you teach me? I've been through these leadership programs, and fortunately, we had a whole year together. I worked with this guy. I loved this guy. At the end of the coaching session, after a year, he came back to me and said, thank you very much. My wife and my daughter say they never knew that I have a heart. So it's amazing how much through this love, through this unconditional acceptance, this positive regard, it helps the person to really transform. And I find those people who transform from that stance actually embodying that and really having this 360 transformation.
I'm just catching myself, just almost feeling emotional as you talk about, you know, this man's family saying they didn't know he had a heart, and through the coaching, his heart was allowed to emerge through the love. And it's like, you're not doing anything to him. You're not saying be loving. You're just being the loving person in that space and allowing whatever it needs to emerge for him to emerge into the space.
There can't be enough love in this world. We've got to give buckets and buckets, and it's free of charge.
So I guess there's something here about language as well, because, you know, I'm really aware that there's a cultural energy that you bring to your work, and I'm wondering if language plays a part to that as well, and what language you coach in when you're working with your clients.
It's mainly English. And I had one client that I coached in Xhosa, in my language. And my goodness, that was one of the most amazing coaching experiences. It was like sitting at home and having a conversation at home with my family, different generations, and just, yes, language does play an important role. I wish I could coach more and more in my mother tongue language.
Yeah, because I know that sometimes when I'm coaching somebody where English isn't their first language, that actually the challenge of trying to work out what we mean can sometimes create new revelations or understanding through the mismatch of language. And I also recognize that when I coach somebody and I think I know what they're saying because I understand their language, that I can fall into assumptions of meaning and have to kind of catch myself and pull myself back. So as you were saying there, but talking, it's like talking to your family. It made me sort of think two things. One of how wonderful it is to sit in a coaching space and just feel so connected, like you're talking with friends. And then it made me also go, oh, I wonder what I would need to look out for in that space, that I wasn't making assumptions or being collusive with them in those conversations.
So here's another thing that I find helps me. If, for instance, I'm coaching someone who is not maybe a first English language speaker, when you tune into the person, you look at their state change and you see, oh my God, this person is so deep in this, and maybe the language is not helping. And then what I would say, could you say that in your language? And then what I do, I watch their animated kind of state. And then just reflect that. I noticed that as you were talking, this was what was happening with you. Can you now tell me in English, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so you're going back to that embodiment piece, the body tells the truth piece. And it's like, okay, let's get the brain out of the way in terms of the translation, and let's let the body do the work, and then let's explore what we're seeing there.
Exactly. Then that's when you get to the who. Who is this person in front of me? Not the what they want to achieve. That's important, but the who gets to the what easier than when we get stuck in the what.
Yeah. And I really resonate with that sort of in my work. I'm fascinated by who is here in front of me right now that is experiencing what they're experiencing. And what part of themselves are they not allowing to exist that might be causing the blockage or the challenge for them in this space.
Exactly. And Rob, what I find happens at the beginning of the coaching session, what I establish more than anything first is what holds meaning for my client. I remember last week I was starting a new client in the US, and in this session, she was not in a very good space. And in the beginning of the conversations, we talked about things that mattered to her. And I found that her two sons were so important to her. As I was seeing this kind of not such a good state, for some reason there was a segue of just asking about her sons, and it's amazing how much just that brought her back to, being seen, and I'm now seen for what matters to me.
Yeah, I think that the work around what's important, that the values and what we hold dear is so important in a coaching space, because often people aren't asked, what's important for you, what do you value, what holds meaning for you, and to really be honest with that and to really hold that allows you to go, well, if this matters to me, then how does that sit in relationship to my challenge or my goal or my work or my family?
Exactly. And how then, as you are exploring this conversation, as they are working on their goal, how is that link to what's important to you? And it's like, oh my God, everything is interlinked. It's interrelated, which is what Ubuntu is exactly. How do you see these bonds this connectedness, everything being together. And if we translate Ubuntu into English, it's I am because we are. And everything that's part of me is part of how I'm going to solve this goal that I'm coming with to coaching.
And as you were saying that, I am because we are, and that interlinked and that interconnectedness and that umbilical cord, it's like it's all about the connections that exist and the systems and the environments and the ancestors.
Exactly.
All of this connection is it's like it's all in the space in that one moment, and part of what you're doing is sort of allowing all of those interconnected parts to come together and speak in that space.
Exactly. And for me, what then this collectiveness does, it somehow lessens the burden on the client. Because it's like, I don't have to work this out on my own. I have my ancestors, having my back, who have been with me all this time. And as I look forward, I have my team, I have colleagues, I have family, friends. And then it says, how do I tap into all those resources? Because I am because we are. And these are the people who think about my interests as well.
So we're really leaning into that the system of ourselves and our families, our environments, to use those to give energy and support to the work that we're doing, as opposed to trying to make all the change on our own. We're going, who's around us that can be part of this change? Who can I invite into the space to help me or support me to move this forward?
And if you think about where we are with this pandemic and isolation, that's what is needed more than ever. People knowing that, yes, I've got people all around me who I can use as a resource in terms of what I am working on.
Yeah, just thinking about the pandemic and how it's created such an isolation. And although we're connected via these, Zoom and by our phones, being able to really feel connected and feel supported, I recognize how important that is.
And what I've noticed, working with my clients and looking at how they are, especially those in higher leadership positions, I'm finding that through this isolation, actually, people are more compassionate. There's more empathy. And people are even asking how others are, like we would in Africa, to really check out for each other. How are you doing?
Yeah. So that's interesting, isn't it? That through isolation, we become more connected and we become more empathetic. Yeah, that's a nice, interesting paradox to explore.
Exactly. And I was listening to Edgar Shane's one of these internet programs, and he had done some research that was actually proving how much people are now connecting at a more relational, more empathic kind of space, rather than just having these transactional relationships.
I guess in our own isolation, we are alone with ourselves and we start to tune into ourselves more, which I guess creates a different quality of tuning into others.
It's amazing because actually it feels like the other feeds on the other. Because as I start to become more curious about me and to befriend myself, then I'm bringing a more authentic me to others.
Mm.
And the connection becomes deeper and not just superficial.
Yeah. And I that sort of really speaks to this idea of as a coach, we need to do the work on the self. We need to do those mindfulness practices, or at least develop that self-awareness to know who we are, so that when we're in that space, that we can know what's us and what's somebody else. But I think doing the work ourselves for ourselves is an important part of that coaching practice.
And for me, that's the part, more than developing skills of how to coach. But how do you develop that deep knowing of yourself? How do you develop that sense of really grounding yourself to arrive in this coaching space where you are in this receptive mode and also this willingness and commitment to receiving your clients, not just to see them, but how do you receive them?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
feel like they are home.
Yeah. Somebody else the other day was talking to me about you're not hearing, you're receiving. And so you're not doing something out, but you're allowing something to come in. And when there's a relaxedness about that, and there's a
Exactly.
barrierlessness about that, when you're just a receiver for the information, and as you receive that information, you're just kind of curious about what am I noticing, what am I picking up, as you say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you throw out your models because we are dealing with human beings here. Goodness me, you've got this amazing person who's entrusted you with what they are working on. All the models, what we've learned, and the theories. At that moment, you've got everything you need.
And that's, this is something that fascinates me as I speak to experienced coaches, because you're an MCC coach yourself. And this idea of, in that moment, it's about the relationship, not about the models. Yes, we need those models and those processes, but it's almost like they're just scaffolding to the relationship, but the relationship is the key part.
Exactly. That's when you feel this energy. You look at the computer screen, it's like, I'm dancing with you right now. And hear the music. Wow. Yeah. I'm feeling it right now as I'm talking about that. I'm feeling it in my tummy, in my navel area. It's like, oh my gosh. This is what is amazing about coaching.
And I guess if we're not silent and still in ourselves, we can't notice this in ourselves, in our bodies, in our sensations. If we have too much going on in our minds, then this isn't going to happen. I remember a coaching friend was doing a talk, a lady called Ishik, and in the talk, she said something like, we have to quiet our minds so we can listen to the whispers.
Exactly.
This idea that there are these whispers happening in our bodies and in the space, but our minds are so loud and so noisy that we don't hear them. And so how do we quiet the self to notice and hear that?
And that's when actually we get into the coaching space without thinking I want to be a good coach here. Because once you have that, there is that sense of wanting to perform. And as soon as that comes into your head and you think you are in the kind of podium or on stage, That's when you lose it. Get so much interested and curious about who you have. And you know, they say you have to disappear as a coach. When you get so interested and curious, the disappearance happens organically. You just fade without consciously telling yourself to fade. Then it becomes an authentic fade.
Authentic fade. I love it. So I feel that we could talk for hours around this, and I'd love to have you back to talk more about that. You know, how you work and your style and what you're noticing in the journey of coaching, because I would imagine that over time you've seen how coaching has changed and developed. But we won't delve into that now. We'll come back to that conversation.
That would be lovely.
Yeah,
that would be lovely.
Where, you know, if people are listening or watching this conversation and they want to find out more about you and how you work, how would they do that? Where would they find you?
My website, it's www.nobantucoaching.co.za.
Cool.
Yeah, that website is under construction. So yeah.
Cool. We'll make sure we'll put that in the show notes so people can connect with you and find out more about your work. But before we go, I'd love to know sort of what's coming next for you. Is there a new adventure in line?
Exciting one. I've started to take coaches through the Ubuntu coaching program, and coaches who have been coaching for a while, who want to really work on their presence, who want to really somatically feel and be with their clients. So I finished one cohort over 4 weekends in March. I've started another one first week of May. So there's that, and it's amazing how just through really taking this and working with a group of people, practicing this, how much magic is being created.
And it feels that the process is both simple and complex because you're getting them to do less, but that can feel like a lot of hard work to let go of all the noise and all the actions.
Yes. At the end of, because we do 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon, everyone say, "Oh, my head. I thought I was not working. Why am I feeling so tired?" Yeah. It's hard work. The Buddha said that it's easier to face an army than to face ourselves.
I think that's
hard work. Yeah.
I think that's a great point for us to end our conversation today. Nobantu, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.